webinar now. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Brady O'Brien. I'm with the Vermont Retail and Grocers Association. I'd also like to briefly introduce my colleague, Taryn Maitland, for those who haven't had a chance to meet her yet.
Hello, thanks Brady. Hi everyone. I work at VRGA as the operations manager. I started in January and it's been a crazy first few months. But before VRGA, I worked at Homeport on Church Street for about 7 years. I'm really excited to be here and I cannot wait to meet all the members.
Thanks, Taryn. Please feel free to reach out to either of us at any time. We are here to support you. We're also joined by Alex Jacob. She's my counterpart in the Vermont Specialty Food Association. VSFA supports our Vermont specialty food producers in the same way VRGA supports grocery in the state. We organized this webinar prior to COVID-19 based on requests from members who are looking for a solid foundation to start their social media platforms. Now that COVID-19 has completely reshaped the selling landscape for retailers, we think it's even more important to make sure your digital outreach is on point. This session is going to be led by Molly Goodyear of 802 Social. Molly's a veteran of the social media space with close to a decade in the industry. She started 802 Social out of a desire to work with small businesses, and she takes a personalized approach to working with clients, including individualized client coaching. We're excited to have her on board for this session, and we're sure you're going to learn a lot. I do want to let everyone know that I've muted all participants for the duration of the presentation. We will have a Q&A at the end, and we encourage you to use the chat box to send in questions during the presentation. We may stop throughout the presentation to answer questions if they're relevant, but we're trying to hold most of the questions until the end. Molly, I'll let you take it from there.
All right, let's see. So hi everyone, it's nice to meet you all. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I am going to have the chat box open, so if you have any questions, you can throw those in the chat and I'll try to answer them as I move along, but if it gets distracting, I'm going to minimize it, but I'll let you know that. So I am the owner of 802 Social, which is from about 2012, I started my business, and I've been working with clients since then primarily as a social media manager. But as of last year, I took on the role as a social media coach as well, which basically means that I help businesses learn how to do the social media themselves. And I set them up so they can manage it successfully and empower them to manage their social media with confidence. So, all right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to actually hide my video. All right. So today what we're going to cover is we're going to cover Facebook business page setup, Instagram business account setup, connecting Instagram to Facebook, the neighborhoods of Instagram, best practices and examples, and a Q&A at the end. So we're going to start with basically a setup of the, let me move this down, of Facebook. And we're going to talk about the page button, which I'll show you what that is in just a second, the about section, our story, and page information. So right here it says send message, and this is basically a page button that is on every Facebook business page. And the button, this tells people an easy way to get in touch with you. So you can click on that button on your page and it'll give you different options to change this. And a couple of examples would be book with you, contact you, learn more, shop, and join community. So I would recommend just taking a look at that little section on your Facebook page to make sure that you have it set up correctly. And it allows you to actually also test that button. So once you have it set up, you can test it to make sure that it works. On the left-hand side, you see the About section, or the About tab, and this informs your audience about your business. It provides a clear, let me just minimize that. Hold on one second. It provides a clear view into your business, and some important details are found there. So one of the things that I suggest to my clients is every few months or every couple times a year to go through these about sections and review these tabs on the left hand side to just make sure that your setup is the way that you want it to be. A lot of times Facebook will drop in new different settings, and there's always a default to it, but it's nice to know that these areas exist, and so that you know how your businesses are finding you and what they're learning about you through these tabs that are selected. Over here on the right where it says Our Story, this is also found in the About section, and that gives it a more personal, a long-form glimpse into your business, and it's a way to kind of tell your story there and humanizes your brand. And it's defaulted to, I think, just no image when you don't fill that in. So take a look at that, and you're allowed to put whatever image in you want there, and then kind of explain your story there. And that, again, that's found in the About section. Another area I want to touch on is the settings. Now, again, kind of going back to what I was just mentioning, these are areas that I definitely recommend going through to just make sure that you know what's there. A lot of times you don't need to change anything, but again, it's just nice to know that those options are there. The page information on the left-hand side, that's a really important area to visit, especially now with COVID, because a lot of businesses are either changing their times of when they're open or closing, or they're closed, not permanently, but temporarily for now. But you can edit all those hours and those dates and times in that section. So again, that's in the settings area, and then on the left-hand side, page information. And then just be sure to, once, if you do have hours that you're editing or days of the week that you're editing, once those change to maybe being fully open, for example, make sure to go back in and change those and update those. They also have, you can see down here, maybe temporarily closed. So if your business is just temporarily closed for right now, you could also select that as well. So we're going to move on to setup and tour around Instagram. And if you're on Facebook and Instagram and you're thinking about adding, or if you're just thinking about adding Instagram into your marketing and you worry that it's too much, you can implement a strategy in which you can connect your Facebook account to your Instagram account to your Facebook account. So again, it's Instagram to Facebook. And this would allow you to post just on your Instagram and then easily share it over to Facebook. And I'll show you an example of that as we run through this. But to do that, a personal Facebook account is needed in order to have a Facebook business page. And a Facebook business page is needed to have an Instagram business account. So all that needs to be set up in order to connect the two. So you need to have a Facebook business page in order to have an Instagram business account. I'm going to talk about now the 6 neighborhoods. Well, I call them neighborhoods. It's not really an official term, but 6 neighborhoods of Instagram, which are the profile, timeline, stories, highlights, IGTV, and direct message. And most people are familiar with just the profile and timeline, but I'm going to touch on the other points as well and explain those and give reasons why to implement those into your Instagram strategies. Hold on, I'm reading a question. I was told not to send IG posts to Facebook because Facebook doesn't support hashtags and stuff. I'm going to talk about that as we go. And yes, that is, so I didn't want to get it too far into that portion, but when you'll see at the end when I do a example of sending those photos over, or those posts over, that it's best to go in and edit the Facebook post to remove those hashtags. They do support hashtags, but they're just not really used as much in Facebook as they are in Instagram. I personally would not, so yeah, we'll get to that. I'll show you that in just a little bit. Okay, so here we go in Instagram. We have the profile here on the left-hand side, and we have, that's also your bio, and that's an important area to also to reflect on and make sure that it's set up correctly, and that if something changes with your business or just make sure that you're editing your bio as well. And so at the top, I have social media coach as well as social media agency. I put the little emojis in and made them more of like a points of my business, just to make it look a little more user-friendly. And one important thing to note here is that this is the only area where you can have a clickable link within Instagram. So a lot of times you may see a post that says, visit the link in my bio. And that's trying to encourage you to go to their bio or go to your bio so that people can click that link. So even if you put a link in a post, that's fine, but it's not clickable. So it's not going to go anywhere. But a trick around that, you can just have your website if you prefer that, or you can also have a type of service. You can see here it says Linktree/802social. And Linktree on the right-hand side of your screen is basically a service that I use that each of these tabs here are separate right here. Those are all different links to or pages to my website. So that first tab is a blog post, and the second one is a link to another page, and so on and so on. So that's kind of a trick to being able to still have the one link, but then it'll drop you into a variety of different ways to get into your website. If that doesn't make sense, let me know. And that is, I will say one more thing about Linktree. I think there is a free version, I can't remember, but the version I'm on is a paid version, but it's like $7 a month or something, or $6 a month, something like that. So it's very reasonable. This is the timeline, which most people are familiar with, and I do want to just kind of note the bottom icons, the little house and the magnifying glass. So the house is kind of your home area, and it'll take you back to your profile. The magnifying glass is an ability to search. The plus sign is where you would go to start to add a new post. The heart is where you have notifications or mentions if somebody mentioned you in a post. And then on the right-hand side, which is my profile picture, that brings you to your timeline. So I'm going to talk a little bit about stories, and I'm going to try not to lose you here because stories can be a little overwhelming. Stories are found up here on the top. There are these little rings here, and stories are individual clips that form a story. And the stories only last 24 hours. So if I was to post a story right now at 2:15, by 2:15 tomorrow, that story would be gone. And the difference between a story versus a timeline photo is a story is more of kind of glimpse at your business, or it could be behind the scenes. It could be, I did a story right before this webinar to kind of say that I was going on. It could be something about nature. It's more of just kind of a personable, fun way to look at your account. Or it could be if you got a new product in and you just want to do like a story of the products coming in and just little clips of, ever-changing information about your business, as opposed to a timeline where that information just stays all the time. So it's more like a website. But if you would like to keep those stories, you can do that by then creating highlights. And highlights are these right here. And I created those icons and the colors there, so that's not usually, doesn't quite always look like that. You'd have to create those cover images. But regardless, highlights are basically categories. So I have stories that I've saved, and I put them in categories of either podcast, quotes, nature, client work, and then it scrolls on beyond your screen there. So again, the stories are quick little personal glimpses into your account or your work. And then highlights will save those stories if you want those saved. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. And you don't need to save everything by any means, but in case you wanted to, that is a way to save your stories. One note on that, I'm not going to really touch on Facebook stories, but you can, Facebook stories do exist. I don't think they're used quite as much as as Instagram stories, but so I'm not going to really touch on that one. One suggestion I do have when trying to figure out if you want to incorporate, if you would like, Andrew, I'll get back to that question towards the end. Thank you. One question or one piece of advice that I do have, if you haven't started working with stories yet or even implementing them, which is fine, my suggestion is always to kind of just pay attention to your Instagram account and the people you're following and how they are utilizing Instagram stories. So you can watch what other people are doing and you can see how they're using the stories creatively, and then figure it out how to do it from there after that. For example, I went to my personal page because I didn't have an active story there, but you would tap on the little plus sign on the profile, And that would open up basically your camera roll, and then you can either use a picture from there or take a new picture. This is a blank slate. I did put the blue on there, but I wanted to do this so I could highlight the areas within the stickers. On the top there, you can see the letters, and that is just letter blocking, and that's where you can type something in. The little squiggly line is kind of the artist area, so it's a pen or a highlighter, and you can draw on your screen, essentially. And then the next one is, or I'm going to stop at the next one, is stickers. And that's like it's a little square, kind of has a little tab on it. And stickers are what makes the stories fun and interesting and just something different. And you can see on the right-hand side, those are stickers, and it would scroll down, but obviously it can't go beyond the screen. And these are great to use in your stories. The location is very important. This gives people the ability to know where you're located. So if you're a brick and mortar store, I would use the location, and you can either put your location of your store or your business, as well as Vermont, Virgins, Vermont, whatever, Burlington, Vermont, wherever you want that location to focus on, and that shows people where you are. You can @mention, you can use the hashtag sticker. This is also a great area where you can interact with your community by asking questions and creating polls and different fun ways for them to interact. The key is to get people to engage, and using these specific stickers will help to create that engagement. So for example, just yesterday I did a picture of Lake Champlain, and I just asked my audience, that indicates that's a poll. So they can scroll on this poll right here, and it's a sliding scale. And then you can see afterwards, I didn't put the results on here, unfortunately, but you can see how many people actually interacted with that question. And then that can, depending on what the question is, that could actually create other conversations outside of this one sticker or story, excuse me. So for example, you could have a product question or a product that you're trying to sell, and you could make a story about it, and maybe ask your audience about that product, or letting them know, would you be interested in buying this last, whatever it is you have? And somebody would answer, and then you can direct message them to ask them, to have that conversation about your product. This is another example of a story clip here on the right-hand side. This was an actual post that I made on my timeline, and then I shared that to my story. So you can take your post that you already have in your feed, and I'm going to back up for just 1 second, see if there's it's not going to show. Okay, sorry about that. There's a little arrow on each of your posts, and you can hit that arrow and it'll say share to your story. And so you can hit that little button and then share that to your story for extra content if you want to practice with stories. Another thing I like to tell my clients is that just practice. You can always delete the story or the post that you made, but just practice and just have fun with it. Any questions about stories before I go on? Here's an example of a highlight. So I mentioned before that stories only last 24 hours. And if you want to save those, that's when you create highlights. And so these are, if you see here at the top, I have a highlight called Vermonting. And I posted this one photo 101 weeks ago. So you can see up here at the top, these little dashes, that's how many different clips are within that one highlight. And this is a story that, or a clip from one of the stories that I made 101 weeks ago, and it was tagging, I probably wouldn't want this image necessarily living in my actual timeline or my feed, so I made it as a story. So it's a temporary photo, and it was just, I used some hashtags, and I used the location tab, which is Provisionary, which is a local store in Virgins, as well as the next one, still in Vermonting, and that was 106 weeks ago. So it saves them forever. And this again, I was tagging Shacksbury, not something that I'm going to keep in my timeline, but it's something that I wanted to point out where I was and to support local businesses. So it's just kind of a more fun approach on using Instagram. The next area is IGTV. IGTV is it's videos. They're videos, and they must be at least 1 minute long. And the maximum length of the video could either be 15 minutes when uploading from a mobile device or 60 minutes when uploading from the web. And so if you see here, this little icon right there looks like a little TV. That's how you access IGTV. And I have it so you can see right here where it's kind of highlighted. And this is just 2 clips of my IGTV. You can see the different views. I have 11 views on this one, 28 views on that. I don't personally use IGTV that much, but a lot of businesses do use it. It's just kind of another housing area within Instagram. And there's more stats behind that, so you can learn more about who those 28 views are. So it's definitely an area to be aware of. Let me just see what that question is. Paid Facebook. Just to pause for a moment on Andrew's question, the paid Facebook ads versus boosted post. What ratio of money would you invest in each? It really depends on what who your audience is and what you're actually trying to spend, or what you're trying to advertise, whether it's a product or just your business itself, or what the end result is. I would put more money in the Facebook ads versus a boosted post, only because ads, you have more options and they're more robust on what you're probably trying to do than boosted post. However, that being said, a boosted post is easier for most people to be able to manage on their own. The beauty of Facebook ads is that, and you can also do these with, you can do Instagram ads as well, but the beauty of Facebook ads is that you can start an ad or a boosted post, either one, give it a day or two, and if it's not really performing the way that you want it to perform, then you can easily stop it. So my suggestion on ads would be to, if you're going to create an ad, to do 2 or 3 at the same time to be able to test either the image or a different message on the image, or message about the ad, and you can, in a different audience sector perhaps, depends on again what it is, and that will give you a little more information on which one is performing well and which one isn't, and then you can adjust accordingly. But give it a couple of days so you can get some actual real results about it. And again, even with boosted post, you could do $5 a day, so it's super low cost, and it's a great way to just kind of start there. Does that answer your question? Okay. I didn't include Facebook ads in this presentation because it can be a little too much for some, but I can certainly chat with you later about that if you'd like. So direct messages, this is found in the home area, so you hit the home button, and then this little arrow up here will take you into your direct messages. And direct messages are essentially your inbox, like you would find in Facebook, and it's a great area to create conversations with your community. It's a great place to really form relationships with people that are engaging with their content. You can send anyone a message if they, maybe you ask a question about a product or service and you have someone responding in your post and you want to take that offline. So that's where you would go to direct message them and have more of a conversation that you might want to have privately as opposed to being on your timeline itself. I did want to point out that when you go to your direct message screen, it'll look like this, but you have 2 sections here, primary and general. So just know that general exists. Primary is your default, and then general is next to it. I honestly don't remember right now what the difference is. I think general are people that either don't follow you or aren't as active in your feed. I'm not really sure because they not just added it, but it's sort of a recent ad and I haven't really looked too far into it, but I wanted to point it out because you'll have notifications that you have direct messages, and if you don't notice that general next to it, you may not click on it and you might miss it. So I kind of wanted to show you an example of an Instagram post and then sharing it over to Facebook. So this was a post that I made a while ago, well, really when COVID started or happened. And it was just to encourage people to like, share, engage, and comment on everyone's social media for just a simple way to support. So, oh, this is the arrow I was mentioning earlier. If you click that arrow, you can then share it to your feed, your story. So I click this, or excuse me. So over here is the actual, the fuller image. This is the location that I was speaking about earlier. It's very important to add that so people know that's where my business is. When you're on your post, you'll have 3 little dots right there, and you can click that those dots, and that's when it'll give you the ability to share that over to Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, etc. And you would just select that and then share. And then you can hop over to Facebook. I always suggest going over to Facebook just to make sure that it looks the way that that you want it to, and that it actually did share over. To go back to Amy's question or comment, was the hashtags going over to, or sending information from Instagram to Facebook is not always ideal. And the reason that is that when you send a post, if you mention someone using the little @ sign and you mention someone in Instagram and then you send that over to Facebook, the formatting is not the same. So if you're tagging a business and then you go over to Facebook, Facebook does not recognize that as the actual, as the business that you're tagging. Same thing with, so then you would have to go in and edit your post and re-tag it so that Facebook recognizes it. And then with the hashtags, if you have hashtags in your post and you send those over, they will be recognizable by Facebook, but it's just, they're not used as frequently in Facebook. So typically when I have an Instagram post, and let's say I have 20 hashtags associated with it, when I send it over to Facebook, I go in and I edit and I take all those hashtags out. So it's a couple of different steps, but a lot of times it's easier for people to just work with one platform to then send it over to Facebook. And the reason why I left these on this post is, for one, to show this as an example, and 2, if I leave hashtags on Facebook, I'll leave 1 to 3. I don't typically would even leave 4, but again, I did it for this example. But I would leave 1, 2, or 3. It doesn't really matter. Again, it's just not used as much. Let's see. So I have a lot of times people asking me, where should they be posting? Facebook versus Instagram? Should they even bring Instagram into the mix? Primarily, most businesses already have Facebook set up for them. So it's then just adding Instagram if you don't already. But my answer is really where your audience is where you should be. So if they are on Instagram, then you should definitely be on Instagram as well. If you're not on either, and you're not sure if you should do both, I still recommend doing both. And I recommend this because Facebook gives you the ability to host events and a few other things that Instagram does not. And so if your business potentially can host some type of event later, it's a great area to utilize Facebook for. The next question that's asked of me very often is, how often should you post and when should you post? So the how often, I would say it's really up to what your business is and what kind of content that you have to share. If you're a product-based business, I guarantee you have a lot to share. Even if you're a service-based business, there's different ways that you can get creative with sharing content. So if you have valuable content that you can share to your audience, then share as much as you can. I certainly do not suggest posting multiple times throughout the day, but even if you set a goal for 3 to 5 times a week, that's great. Then do 3 to 5 times a week. And when you're supposed to do that, it's really, you should pay attention to your analytics and kind of gauge when your audience is there. You can also think of it as, maybe your audience isn't really paying attention to their computers or social media during dinner time. So maybe you post at 10 a.m. Kind of just think of, where your audience is and who they are and when they're likely to be in front of their screens, which at this point is all the time. So my suggestion there is just to focus on just making the post happen. And then after you get some traction and you get some engagement, you can start to see in your and your insights, your stats of what people are responding to and resonating to, and kind of gauge that. Now, in regards to hashtags, oh, one more thing I want to say about the how often and when. My other suggestion is to create a calendar for yourself. And that calendar can be, just 3 to 5 times a week that you're going to post, and you're going to do it on, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And every week you spend some time and you craft out or draft out what you want to post. And at least if you start kind of with a calendar view, maybe you do a week at a time and start kind of putting information in each of those spots, it kind of helps to really formulate a plan for yourself and not make it so overwhelming. And that way you're not every day thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to post today? So kind of plan it out. And if it makes sense for your business, I do recommend you can think of your business as content buckets. So you may have a content bucket that is all products, and another bucket that is blogs, story about your business. Or you may have another bucket that is just about Vermont because you want to support Vermont businesses. So if you kind of break those up, and maybe on Monday you have your product bucket, and on Wednesday you have a Vermont bucket, and on Friday you have blogs, a blog bucket, then that kind of starts to break down your content and make it easier for you to actually place those within your calendar. I hope that helps. If you guys want me to refresh that at some point, I definitely can, but breaking it into content buckets definitely helps. Hashtags. So hashtags are words or phrases, short phrases that start with a little pound sign, the little tic-tac-toe board, no spaces in a hashtag. And I didn't want to go too far into hashtags because that's a whole nother, that can be another 30 minutes on just hashtags, but I will touch on those a little bit. Hashtags are primarily used in Instagram. They are used a little bit in Facebook. You can use them also in LinkedIn. And I think it's 3 for LinkedIn. That's the ideal number that you should use. And they create conversations around common topics, or not common topics, but topics that you might be interested in. So there's hashtag, I would always do your hashtag, your business. And there could be, hashtag Vermont, hashtag COVID-19, whatever your product or whatever you're sharing is about, what maybe people are searching your business or your product or service for through hashtags. That's what you should create those hashtags around. And there's definitely a lot of conversation that's always changing about how many hashtags to use, and how many is too many, and how many is too little. I typically do 10 to 12, but you can do much more than that. I think it's 30 is the latest number that you can do on hashtags within your Instagram account. But it's really what's makes sense for your business. Another suggestion for hashtags, that if you do have a certain amount that you want to use and that you use them every time, an easy way to manage those would be to have the list of hashtags in maybe your notes app that you have on your phone, so that every post that you make, you can just go over to your notes app, highlight all of those, copy, and then paste them into the post, so you don't have to retype them every time you're doing a post. The other question that I get quite often is, should the hashtags be in the comment or in the original post, or should they be in the first comment? It doesn't really matter. It's what you prefer. I personally do a few periods, down on the first comment, and then I add them in. So it's not an actual comment, it's within the post itself. It's really up to you. The location is what I'd mentioned earlier, which allows people to know where your business is and where you're actually located. So if someone's scrolling through Facebook or Instagram and they see something that catches their eye, but they may not even know who that business is or what that business is, they may keep scrolling. But if they notice that it's just in Burlington, Vermont, where's this restaurant or this business or whatever it is, that might make them dive a little deeper into who your business is and where you are, and hopefully make a purchase. So it's really important that you use the location area as well. You can also, when you're in Instagram, if you're searching, you can hit the magnifying glass, excuse me, and you can search by places. So unfortunately, I didn't think to put a picture in on that, but just if you hit the magnifying glass, and then on the top where it says search, it has top, accounts, tags, and places, and you can search Burlington, or you can search, wherever you are to see things that are around you. So it'll bring up other accounts and other businesses that are around you in that area. And you can also, if you have old posts and you've never even thought about putting the location in, you can go back now and add those locations. When posting an event, shouldn't you use that location versus where the, yes, absolutely. Again, you can use the location of wherever you want. So with my business itself, I'm actually in Ferrisburg, but a lot of times I'll do Virgins or Vermont, just trying to let people know that it's just, I'm in Vermont, as opposed to specifically saying Virgins or Ferrisburg. And then an event, yes, because you're also helping to advertise that event for them, and you're saying where that picture was taken, essentially. Wait, did I answer that right? When posting an event, shouldn't you use that location versus, oh, yes, yeah, yes. So I warned Brady I would talk a little fast, and I think I did, because now we still have a little bit more time. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions and answers, or questions for anything to do with the social media that I did not cover. So if you have questions, please drop those in the chat. And for everyone showing up today, I just want to let you know that I do offer a social media audit during this time period that we're all going through. And it's really just a comprehensive look at what you have going on now. And then I'll provide you up to 5 action items that you can implement easily and immediately. So if you're interested in any of that, let me know. Send me an email or a message, however you'd like to get in touch. Giveaways on Instagram, how often is a good number? That's a good question. I would say probably, I guess it depends really on how successful your giveaway is. So if you do a giveaway and it's highly successful and you got a lot of feedback from it and a lot of interest, and if you have things to give away, then maybe it becomes a weekly giveaway campaign, or bi-weekly, or every other week. Really depends on what you're trying to give away. Do you have an idea of what you would give away, or you just mean in general? It also depends if you're doing the giveaway in conjunction with other businesses. So if it's, one of those big campaigns of tag 2 of your friends to be qualified, as well as follow 4 other accounts, that becomes quite cumbersome and not as easy for people to participate. And you might not have as much traction. But if it's just a simple giveaway and tag 2 friends and then that's it, or mention 2 friends, then that might have a little more traction than a complicated one. We give away with other businesses around 2 per month. Most seem to work out. Yeah, I think that's probably a good number, especially, again, since you have the other businesses.
And just to jump in here, since we have reached the Q&A portion, don't feel like you have to just use the chat. If you do want to unmute yourself and ask a question, you can do that as well. But obviously we are paying attention to the chat.
I know I didn't talk about other social media platforms, but I just wanted to specifically talk about Instagram and Facebook today. But if you have other questions about those as well, I can answer those. I will.
So everybody knows that they are all muted. So if you are trying to talk, you will need to unmute yourself. If you can't figure out how to unmute yourself, just shoot me a message and I can unmute you. I'm hesitant to unmute everybody because we usually get people on phone calls or people in cars or stuff like that. So just let me know if you need to be unmuted.
We send samples to bloggers also who post randomly for free. How do you feel this compares to paying in the book? I'm not a fan of the paying influencers to post. I think I don't know. I think it's kind of a weird situation, but I know that there are a lot of influencers that are out there that get paid to do this, or not do this, but to get paid to post. I just don't feel it's as genuine as someone just blogging about it or sharing it for goodwill, I guess. So. You're welcome. What's a good way to find what platforms your potential customers and audience use? That's a great question. Are you a product-based business or a service-based business? That's one service. That's a tough one. I would need to know more about your clientele and who your clientele is and what their age breakdown is. The younger generation is more on Instagram than Facebook, but they are still there, even though a lot of them won't admit it. I am on all platforms, obviously, but as a service-based business, but I did realize a couple of years back that most of my audience is on Facebook. So I spend a great deal more on Facebook than Instagram when it comes to trying to reach new clients. So it depends on what your service is and what age range would be one portion of the question or scenario to think through. So if it's definitely a younger generation and you can come up with images that represent your business, then I would suggest adding Instagram into the mix. But again, like I mentioned before, Facebook no matter what, and then bringing on Instagram based on your clientele.
Any additional questions? All right, unless I see something pop up while I'm talking, I'm going to take that as a no. As Molly said, if you do come up with additional questions or something like that, feel free to reach out to her. She's got her email on the screen right there. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I do want to remind you about our upcoming events before you go. We do have a webinar next week. It's going to be on Wednesday, May 6th at 1 p.m. It's called How to Stay Growth Oriented and Resilient in Your Retail, Grocery, or Specialty Foods Business. It's going to be presented by Sam Markowick of Downtown Up. This interactive online workshop is going to give you strategic tools, perspectives, and support to sustain and grow your business during the COVID-19 crisis. We'll include a link to register in our follow-up email today. We are working on 3 additional webinars for the month of May. Those are going to be led by Alex, my counterpart at VSFA, but they are open to VSFA and VRGA members. We'll have some more details on those out to you shortly. Keep in mind the recording of this webinar will be available on our website. I'll be sending out a recording to those who registered as well. And feel free to reach out to any of us with questions that come up in the future, and we'll make sure to get them answered for you. Thanks for signing on. Oh.
Thank you.
Just comments.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.